Sinbad, the fourth great singularity, king of the seven seas, founder of Sindria, the first and only man to own 7 metal vessels. What makes Sinbad so good? Is it his charisma? His ability to rally people's hearts despite their sorrow? Is it his power, and how every single one of his display is an epic in and of themselves? Or is it his ideology, and how across the series it rots alongside his character to the point where, at the end, it's barely recognizable? Every single point I have mentioned here directly contributes into what makes Sinbad so good. In the adventures of Sinbad and Magi itself, every single one of Sinbad's personality traits are explored to their deepest levels. From here on, I'll be talking heavily about Magi and adventures of Sinbad, so be warned. Sinbad's personality directly attracts everyone to him. He is a natural-born leader whose words heighten and lift the spirits of everyone around him, no matter how deep in despair and sorrow they are in. A bright-spirited man who is also very optimistic, but is far from naivety. He is well aware of the terror the world is able to inflict. Slowly throughout the story, he gets to see more of it, starting by the separation of his family by the war. This is when Sinbad's desire to change the world and create his own country comes from. He wants to create a country and a world where war does not exist. Sorrow and despair and hunger are a thing of the past, and this journey of his attracts people to assist him in his endeavor and leads them to a brighter future. On the road, making alliances, friends, and suffering dire consequences due to his actions. Sinbad knows the rules of this world. Despite his bright, optimistic, and uplifting nature, he knows how to make deplorable decisions that benefit him. Sinbad was deceived and becomes a slave. In order to escape, his friends act in diplomatic and strategic ways. But Sinbad is self-centered. He was told not to fall for the slave trader's plan, but he believed that he was chosen by destiny to walk this path, and he could never possibly lose, which caused them to be captured, enslaved. In enslavement, he had to do such terrible things that got dozens of children mentally scarred and even killed. Sinbad manipulates the children slaves around him to revolt against their owner. He emotionally manipulated them to his own desire. He played them like a fiddle, and his ultimate desire was to get himself free. In the Partavia arc, Sinbad has a choice: to save his village people who were experimented and turned into monsters, but they still had the hearts of humans and cognition of their former selves. Despite their cries, Sinbad sacrifices them in order to transfer the land between him and the Partavian leader seamlessly. Once again, Sinbad did not learn his lesson. He was too diluted by his destiny and his dream. Serenity told Sinbad that Barbarossa was tricking him, manipulating him and using him, and how Barbarossa potentially had a dark weapon against Sinbad. Sinbad knew about Barbarossa's dark side, but he disregarded Serenity's warnings over and over and over again. He was too diluted by his destiny, his dream, and how close it was to becoming a reality. He was blinded into a tunnel vision, and this same mistake caused the deaths of hundreds and thousands of people. He lost his friends, his country, his people, all because of his selfish desire to create a country. The invasion of the spirit within his soul directly corrupts him, his very foundation, and changes him as a man. That's why later on the story we see him fall even deeper into despair. But despite this, he still maintains his deceptive charisma. Sometime after the first Sindria fell, he came back. He rallies up his people with his words and inspiration and lifts their spirits, as they set out to establish the second Sindria. In the events of Magi, Sinbad makes some questionable decisions. Towards the second half, Sinbad implants a mind control device to control Princess Kogyoku to spy on people around her, using her to gain intel. Even though before this point they were established to be really good with each other, trusting and friendly, and their relationship was overall good, but Sinbad still used her like a pawn and manipulated her in ways that benefited him. In the invasion of the Ko Empire, the two ideologies clash, Sinbad believing in everyone working together as a group of individual countries to pave a way for a better future, whilst Prince Cohen believes that everyone should work under a same banner, same identity, and same name. He believes individuality and cultural differences make humans fight each other. If this is removed, the world has a better chance of unification, This drive towards peace comes from Cohen's experience with war, how terrible and destructive it can be. They both know it, yet they still clash. Cohen, being a bigger man, surrenders. He does not want two major powers to attack each other and cause millions of casualties in the process. In this same war, Sinbad backs Prince Hakuryu. Even though Hakuryu is manipulating people and literally enslaving them through mind control, Sinbad does not care. He sees him as an ally and thus works together with him, despite the moral implications of literally enslaving people, something Sinbad wanted to work against, something he wanted to prevent and have everyone be free, something Sinbad was seemingly fighting against. By his very ideology, he wants everyone to be free, for everyone to work together through free will and cooperation. But despite this, he backs Hakuryu. As Cohen surrenders, the Ko Empire is forsaken by Sinbad. The world under his direct control develops in the west, whilst the Ko Empire in the east is ignored and rots from the inside out. Alibaba comes around and starts fixing things for the Ko Empire, but instead of Sinbad helping and trying to change Ko for the better, despite its terrible past, Sinbad forsakes them. He does not help them, he ignores them, and when he does have anything to do with them, Sinbad spreads rumors about how Ko is invading other people again. All because Ko is a competitive country, and the market is a game. Throughout the story, we also get to see some information about some foreshadowing that really entail how Sinbad changed for the worst. Despite the prequel manga really showing us a lot of things for Sinbad, in the actual original manga of Magi, we still see some foreshadowing that really implicate the same feelings, like Yuna being so hesitant with everything regarding Sinbad, seeing that Sinbad changed and he doesn't trust him. He is referring back to the evil external force that invaded his body. His enemies called Sinbad have fallen, all of it indicating to a massive, dark, and sinister change within Sinbad to be revealed soon. Everything was set in stone from the start. The foundation was laid for the ultimate reveal. His sinister plus ideology and plans moving forward were always set up from the very start. It was always set in stone and the foundations were laid, until ultimately the final payoff came around, when he wanted to turn everyone into Magoi, so he can stand at the top of every being in existence. The world of Magi has dimensions. Above are gods who are more powerful than this reality. Below are gods who are weaker. Communication is close to impossible, but it has happened before with Almaturan and Alfarman. Sinbad removed everyone's free will and conditioned them into following his road of suicide and genocide by the hands of Sinbad that will allow him to stand at the pinnacle. He was always praised to be a genius and glorious being, and for him to be topped by a sheer luck because he was born in a lower dimension, in a way, gives him inferiority and also a superiority complex. He does not want to live below someone. He is so used to being the pinnacle of life and existence. This idea of him is unique and very absurd. He credits his friends for helping him and says that he would never have gone this far without them, but at the same time, he believes none of them could have accomplished anything without him. He wants everyone to have free will, choice, individuality, but under his control. He wants to be in control, and whenever it benefits him, he will remove everything he wanted for the people. He will, by any means necessary, achieve whatever he sets his eyes on. He is almost paradoxical in a way, but meaningfully paradoxical. This shows his flaw as a human. He had a vision for the world, but this vision was corrupted whilst also keeping the same form, with a twisted spin on it. The freedom until it's no longer necessary. Peace. If everyone works together to help me achieve what I want, it will be peace, but just under my rule. Sinbad being so idolized, man of all talents, almost a godlike individual, he is nonetheless, at its core, a flawed human, a selfish one, and all of these conditions really elevate his character. He is godlike, but at the same time, he is relatably human. Nothing really steps out when it comes to being absurd. Everything is balanced within him. His righteousness, his power, his weakness, his insecurities, and his ideology.
Despite me mostly talking about his negative sides, I really do find his bright spirit and charisma to be one of the best parts of Sinbad. It's fun, enjoyable, and very uplifting at times to watch. It's very memorable as well, but at the same time, a lot of people already associate this side of Sinbad as Sinbad and what makes him so good, but at the same time, a lot of people don't talk about his dark side. That's what I find to be most enjoyable, his development, how he went from point A to point B. The journey and transformation of his character is one of the most fascinating pieces of writing I've ever seen. This is what makes Sinbad so good for me. And something as big as his development to be not talked about as much is very disheartening.
You would imagine a character like him being around, it will be almost nigh impossible to have any kind of weight within the story. But that's far from the truth. Even though Sinbad is OP and arguably the strongest character in Magi, he has set in situations where raw power in many cases is not the answer, or he just simply does not have the power to do anything. Like at the start of Magi, when his metal vessels are stolen. This gives the story stakes. He can't just Balala Saika his way out of everything. This is how a OP character should be written. That fine balance between OP, but at the same time, using it in a way that does not remove all weight. Sinbad at the start of Magi gets his power stolen, thus he can't brute force it. In the prequel series, it's all about diplomacy. He does not wave his sword around and force them to submit. He inspires them and through diplomacy makes rules and connections. In the arc in which he is enslaved, he has his powers taken away, giving more focus to his critical thinking prowess. This isn't to say he doesn't use his powers at all. Nonetheless, he still uses his power when it comes to diplomacy and also when it comes to fights. But it's rare enough so that whenever it does appear, it is a groundbreaking and a shocking event. It has weight and is exciting. Not to mention the way fights are displayed. He dominates absolutely every single fight he is in, and he is an absolute badass every single time. Accompanied by his kick-ass soundtrack, which is arguably one of the best OSTs ever, it's just a perfect recipe for an amazing display of power. If you like this video, please like, sub, don't be cringe, and yeah, see ya.